Call a meeting of the San Carlos Planning Commission for April 1st, 2019 to order. Will you stand and please join me in pledging allegiance to our flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Dugan is absent this evening. Commissioner Iacopone?
Present.
Commissioner Roof?
Present.
Vice Chair Bergman?
Present.
And Chair Bradley?
Present. Thank you. If you have an agenda, first is public comment. Public comments are limited to items not on the agenda. The Planning Commission may briefly respond to statements made or questions posed as allowed by the Brown Act here in California, Government Code Section 54954.2. However, the Planning Commission's general policy is to refer items to the planning staff for their attention or have a matter placed on a future Planning Commission agenda for a more comprehensive action or report. Next is the approval of the minutes for March 4th, 2019 meeting.
No comment or addition from me.
Hearing no more comments or corrections, I'll move that we approve the minutes as read. And I want to say that that was a great job because there were so many comments for a long, lengthy meeting last time.
I'll second.
Commissioner Iacopone?
Yes.
Commissioner Roof?
Yes.
Vice Chair Bergman?
Yes.
And Chair Bradley?
Yes. So next we move into public hearing process, procedures for public hearings. The planning staff will present a report on the history, physical features, etc. on the application, followed by the staff's recommendations. The applicant will make a presentation, and thereafter interested members of the community may speak on the proposal. When all interested parties have had an opportunity to be heard, the public hearing will be closed and no further discussion from the floor can be held. The Planning Commission will then consider the evidence and make its recommendations. If you challenge a public hearing item in court, you may be limited to raising only those issues that you or someone else has raised at the public hearing described in the notice or in written correspondence delivered to the City Hall at a prior to the public hearing. Speakers should fill out a speaker's form found in the rear of the room and hand it to the recording secretary or planning staff or one of the Planning Commission members prior to addressing the commission. The speaker should then come, when called, up to the microphone in the front and speak, since the meeting is being recorded, and this will assist the staff in preparing the minutes of the meeting. We have one item to consider tonight, and that is 616 Cedar Avenue, APN 050-122-070, which is a request for design review, tentative map, and conditional use permit, and a protected tree removal in order to build a 3-story, 4-unit multi-family building at 616 Cedar Street. And we have a staff presentation.
We do, thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Andrea Martisich, Associate Planner. As you mentioned, the item before you this evening is request for approval for a new project at 616 Cedar Street. The applicant is proposing to demolish an existing duplex, which is located on the lot, and construct a new 3-story, 4-unit townhouse with attached garages. This evening, there are 4 actions before the Commission. The first is the design review itself for the building. A tentative map approval is also required to subdivide the project into 4 condominium townhomes. A use permit is needed to allow for the proposed parking location. And then finally, a protected tree removal permit is required for the removal of 3 protected trees. And I'll go through each entitlement one by one. So in terms of existing conditions, as I mentioned, there is an existing duplex on the lot. The lot's slightly over 7,500 square feet. It is adjacent to a multifamily building on the left of it and a single-family home on the right of it. The lot's about 50 feet wide and 155 feet deep. On the lot itself now, as I mentioned, is a duplex. There's a single-story massing in the front and a 2-story massing at the rear, with a detached garage at the very rear of the lot. The block itself is mostly multifamily, with some, there's, as I mentioned, a single family residence next door, but primarily multifamily. And then there's 5 trees on site, a lemon tree, 3 yucca trees, and a Japanese maple. And I'll go more into the trees in a little bit, but 3 of those trees are protected because of their size. The lemon tree and one of the yuccas are not. All trees are proposed for removal. The general plan designation for the site is multifamily medium density, and the zoning is RM59. On this map, you'll see the area that is colored yellow is the lot itself, but the other lots that are the orange color are the RM59 zoning. So the lot is surrounded by RM59, with the exception of the lots that face or have frontage on San Carlos Avenue. Those are zoned MUSC, mixed use San Carlos Avenue. However, they do have the same density of 59 units per acre, even though they're a different zoning designation. In terms of the lot sizes in the neighborhood, several are about the same size as this lot. There are some larger lots across the street and throughout the block, so there really is a mix, but there are quite a few lots that are this narrower portion, the 50 feet wide. So this is the proposed site plan for the project. The applicant, as I mentioned, is proposing to demolish an existing structure and construct a new 3-story, 4-unit townhouse with attached garage parking. The relative narrowness of the lot, that 50 feet, led the design of the building to kind of follow that elongated shape of the parcel, with one driveway leading to the attached garages. So on the ground floor, there are 4 2-car garages, 1 for each unit. And then an entry feature is proposed facing Cedar Street itself, which is the entry for Unit 1. And you'll see this in a little bit on the front elevation. The entrances for the remaining units are located next to each garage. At grade, each unit would have the 2 covered parking spaces within 4 garages, so 1 2-car garage for each unit. And then access to the garages would be from the driveway. Within each garage, there's area for storage, trash recycling, the 2 cars, and entry into the unit. And then there's an outside storage area here, located to the left side of Unit 4, which allows for additional storage area and bike parking. In terms of size of the units, units 1 to 3 are approximately 1,500 square feet. That's including garage. And unit 4 is approximately 1,740 square feet. So in terms of code compliance with the municipal code, the proposed building does comply with all development standards outlined in the code, such as height, floor area, lot coverage. The proposed height of this building is 36 feet 1 inch. The maximum allowed height in this district is 50 feet, so it's about 14 feet less tall than what would be allowed. It's 3 stories where 4 is allowed. It does meet all setbacks. The floor area ratio for this is 1.09, where a maximum of 2.0 is allowed, so it's at about half. And as I mentioned, there's 2-car garages per unit, so it meets the 2 covered parking spaces required per unit. The project also meets, as I mentioned, lot coverage, but as well as open space and landscaping requirements as well. Let me just actually go back one. As I mentioned before, in terms of the entryway, this is the front elevation, so facing the new building from Cedar Street. There's this entryway here, which looks like entry towards the whole building, but it's entry just to Unit 1 itself. The design of the building is a contemporary architecture that features simple, clean lines. The primary exterior materials, there's some samples at the dais by the chair of the actual materials themselves, which include stucco siding, colored stucco, and dark wood vertical siding. And then there's also the glass, which forms the balconies here that face the south. In terms of landscaping, the applicant's proposing the primary areas of landscaping at the front and the rear of the lot. And as you can see, there's also some ancillary landscaping on the north and south property lines. The applicant has also proposed 2 planter areas for residents, vegetable gardens, and creeping fig along the fence. Along each side property line, the applicant is proposing flowering plum trees. So there's 4 on the north side and 5 here on the south side. A total of 14 trees will be planted as part of the project. That includes the 9 trees along the side, 3 coast live oaks at the rear, and 2 street-oriented trees, which are Chinese hackberry trees. There's also a decomposed granite pathway at the rear or the north side of the building, which also has some entrances into each unit, into the garage. And this is included in the plans, but just to show examples of the different tree species and types of landscaping that are proposed throughout the site. Most of the landscaping itself will be the native landscaping as required by our landscape code. So this slide demonstrates the amount of parking required for the project. 8 spaces are required for the units themselves, just based on the number of bedrooms proposed, and then an additional 2 spaces are required for guest parking. However, the project is allowed to take an automatic 20% reduction in the parking because it's within a quarter mile of transit. So the required amount of parking is 8 spaces, which are provided within the 4 garages. So based on that, the project does comply with parking requirements. A parking analysis was conducted, which looks at the proposed parking on site, distance to transit, and turn movements, and that's included as attachment 6 in your packet. And this evening we also have Nick from W-Trans who prepared the report, so if you have specific questions about that, he will be available. The next entitlement is a conditional use permit. This is required because the proposed surface parking, although it's enclosed, is located within 40 feet of a street-facing property line. In order to make the parking closer than 40 feet, a conditional use permit is required. This proposal is proposing the parking to be 27 feet from the front property line, so 13 feet closer than what's allowed by the code by right. So in order to approve this use permit, the code requires that the design incorporate habitable space built close to the sidewalk to the maximum extent feasible, and the project is constrained so that providing parking 40 feet back isn't really feasible. So this slide shows kind of just a snapshot of the front area, and the area outlined in yellow is the garage for Unit 1, which is closest to the street. Between the street and that garage are this entry and storage area, which face Cedar Street. Since the entire first floor of the building is dedicated to parking, the design itself places the focus on the second and third floor facade as well as that entry facade on the first floor. Since the parking is side-loaded, it is screened from public view. There's a fence on the south side of the lot, which helps block the view to that. In terms of constraints, the lot is substandard from what is required in that area, so pushing the whole building 13 feet back isn't really feasible in terms of setback requirements, open space, and landscaping. So staff does believe that this request does meet all of the findings. The municipal code also has several general use permit findings that have to be met in terms of the use being allowed, meeting general plan and zoning requirements, and a discussion of all of these findings is outlined in the staff report. The third entitlement is a tentative map. This is required for the creation of the condominium townhomes. There's 10 required findings, all of which have been met. The map itself is reviewed by the city engineer for compliance with state and local requirements, and standard requirements and conditions have been added to the certificate for the tentative map, which is attachment 2. So that entitlement has a separate set of conditions and requirements. And staff, based on review by city engineer, does believe that the proposal is in compliance with all of the laws as required. And then the final entitlement being requested is for tree removal. There are 5 trees on site. A picture of those was included in the staff report. 3 of them are considered significant, so needing a permit. With this project, the 3 trees are 2 yucca trees and a Japanese maple. All of the trees are pretty small but have quite a few trunks. And based on the way that we calculate measurements for multi-trunk trees, the addition of the trunks, adding the sizes together, triggered them to be protected. So we had the city arborist go out to take a look at the trees that were considered protected. He noted that the yucca trees himself were, his words, extremely low value, and does not think that they should be even really considered trees, even though we do. So he was in support of removal of those. He also noted that the Japanese maple itself, in its state and location, is considered to be low value. So based on his report, the plans, and then also the amount of trees, so again, 14 new trees being proposed to come in. Staff believes that the trees proposed from removal meet the finding of substantially detracting from the property, the value of the property, and that allowing the removal is necessary to allow reasonable economic or other enjoyment of the property, which are the findings that are needed. And again, there are 12 trees proposed to be planted on site, as well as 2 street trees to be planted, all 24-inch box. In terms of public outreach and comment, the applicant held a neighborhood meeting in November of 2017 and revised some of the project landscaping in response to those to concerns that were brought up. The city did their normal notification in terms of mailing the notice and publishing in the newspaper. We did receive an email from the neighbor to the south, the adjacent neighbor, who had some concerns with noise that the automatic gate might make, planting between the 2 properties, construction hours, and maintenance of existing landscaping that's there now. So the applicant has spoken with the neighbor and actually has a presentation, and that will explain the outreach he's done with her and the solutions they've done with that. I did want to comment on construction hours. Those are set by the municipal code, so this project would follow those hours, which I believe are 8 to 6 Monday through Friday and 9 to 5 on Saturday and Sunday. So that's something that every project would have to follow. But in terms of the site-specific concerns, the applicant will speak to those directly. And this is the motion, should you choose to approve this item. I'm available for questions, and we also have the property owner here, the project applicant, who's the architect, Chris Parlett, and then Nick from W-Trans, who wrote the report as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Does the applicant wish to make a presentation? Will you come up, please? Welcome.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Button for the All right, yeah, good evening. Hello, my name is Chris Parlett, and great, I love the sound system and video presentation here. Yeah, I'm not used to having such a high-tech setup, so good to have that. So I'm the architect for the project at 616 Cedar Street. And the owners and I are excited to present this project before you, as we think it'll be a great addition to the neighborhood. Two of the owners are here this evening, and one owner plans to live in the rear unit of the project, so just to kind of ensure the overall success of it. And I was just some background on me, but I was the architect for the project at 1536 Cherry Street that finished about a year ago. And this is just a few blocks away. I just wanted to mention this project as it's similar to what we're shooting for, and this contained kind of a rich mix of materials and is kind of solar ready to achieve 100% net zero electric use. So we strove for a high level of detail and craftsmanship that we were also pursuing for our Cedar Street project. And Andrea did a great job of really explaining the overall location and facts about the project, but I'll just kind of briefly go through it here. So our project is located near San Carlos Avenue, shown there, and it's set amongst large apartment buildings, mostly 3 and 4 stories tall, kind of all around that area. And currently on the site is the residential house duplex that Andrea mentioned. And so on the north, gives you a view of the, actually the neighbor on the south is a 2-story apartment complex, and to the north is the single family residence. Across the street are large 3 and 4 story apartment complexes. And so our project is, it's only 3 stories tall, and we've kind of really tried to articulate the massing to really keep the scale of the building to blend more with the residential buildings around versus the large apartment complexes. And so we're using a mix of painted off-white stucco and dark stained vertical wood to differentiate the masses of the building, and standing seam metal as used for the roof. And this diagram gives you a visual of the building envelope that was described earlier. That's allowed by the city, and our building is obviously much less height, and the bulk is much reduced from the city maximum allowed. And this is an overhead kind of bird's eye view. Shows each unit has this distinctive gable roof facing south that gives privacy to a large outdoor deck on the 3rd level, and solar panels on the south-facing part of the roof capture the sun. And I'll just quickly run through the plan again here, but just showing the 4 units, and the owner's plans on occupying the rear unit of the project, hence its slightly larger size. And then similar to Cherry Street, we're doing the garages all on the 1st level, and the entry, as described earlier, for the unit 1 is at the Cedar Street side, and the rest of them are off of the driveway. And this is a view that shows kind of the gate to the driveway and the planted area down the south of the property. And so, yeah, as Andrea mentioned, we had a neighbor outreach meeting on November 21st, 2017. 3 people were in attendance to that. One person attended, Mrs. Nelson, and she brought up a few items, and we corresponded back and forth with her after the meeting. This kind of describes which items we were looking at. She wants to retain the ivy on an existing concrete block wall that's on the south of our property, bordering her property. And so we're going to obviously retain that. And to the rear of the property, there's kind of a deteriorated, on that red mark there, a deteriorated wood fence that needs replacement. So we would replace that, obviously, with part of our landscaping portion. We added a few more trees on the south to give her a little more privacy. And in terms of the gate, we talked about doing a gate operator for the front driveway gate, finding one basically as quiet as we can find to minimize noise issues from that. And then her comment on the construction hours, we would obviously follow the municipal code requirements on that. And I did speak to her today and talk to her about her big concern is the fence issue, and we talked about meeting with her in a few weeks with the owner on site, and just to kind of make sure everybody's on the same page and we can come to resolution on that. So a full landscape plan with drought tolerant and low maintenance plants are included throughout, and numerous trees of different sizes are included. This is a view of the front entry that will have kind of natural grasses and various size planters of Corten steel to give privacy to the front unit entry. And these images convey just kind of the feel of lush landscaping we're shooting for to really enhance the site and soften the building. So we feel that our building addresses the issues of height and scale to be sensitive to the surrounding area and community, and we feel kind of using a rich mix of materials will give a distinctive character to this building in contrast to the monotone exteriors of most of the apartment buildings nearby. And the owners and myself look forward to moving ahead on this, and we feel to answer any questions anybody would have at this point.
I have a comment, which is I really appreciate it when someone comes and really looks at the neighborhood and sees what fits in the neighborhood, and the fact that you went with 3 stories instead of 4 stories. And I mean, this is really complimentary to what's around it. I just really appreciate it. I think this is in good taste.
Thank you.
I also appreciate that you're moving ahead and planning for solar panels. The landscaping looks good, as well as the architecture.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we're. I mean, all my projects really trying to push to get the units to 100% net zero electric use is one of our main kind of goals.
But I bet you people don't want to give up their gas stoves, do they?
Yeah, they still have their gas fireplaces and stoves. Yeah.
Yeah, I also appreciate the solar characteristic, and wonder whether the garages will be wired so they're electric vehicle charging ready.
Yeah, they definitely will be wired, and I believe the building code now requires it to wire. Yeah, the garages. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
I wasn't sure of the timing on that. But
Isn't that? I'm pretty sure the building code requires to have an electric charging outlet ready to go, like 220 outlet ready in the. Cal Green does. Yeah.
Okay. Good to know.
In one of our recent project approvals, we worked with the owner to actually get an agreement to require solar as a going in rather than a later add-on. Have you and the owner talked about that, about putting solar in as part of the base package, and then in allowing the homeowners to pay it back through their fees?
We haven't talked specifically about details of that. I know, though, from speaking of the project on Cherry Street, which we just did, which we had a lot of discussion with the owner and developer as to do we put the solar panels on before, and like you said, charge it in, put it into the sale price of the unit. And it really came down to, as all developments, you're finding ways you can cut out here and there, and so they just didn't put the panels on in the end, but it's all ready to, it's all the wiring is in and everything is ready to go. So yeah, I think it would be it's a conversation to have, just as do we put the panels on as part of the finished unit, but we haven't had that detailed discussion yet.
With the Cherry Street property, can you remind me, when did people move in, roughly?
Well, they had an open house this weekend, so nobody's moved in yet. But that one, yeah, it took quite a while to finish that one up. But they're finally there, and it's an open house this weekend.
Congratulations. Because I was going to ask you how the parking was working. I first, very creative use of the lot to accommodate the parking and keep it away from the street. Nice job, and it's tight, and I can imagine it will result in some vehicles maybe not being well suited for the parking. I'm just thinking. Can you get an Escalade or a Yukon in there, do you think?
Well, it's interesting because I just had a conversation with Nick here, who's the parking expert and the parking consultant, and they use for their, and you can see in the plan, in the drawings here, they actually use a Suburban as their, which I didn't know this, was as their model diagram. So Suburban's a massive car. So if that can fit in here, I mean, you can fit like 12, Mini Coopers in there if you can fit 4 Suburbans. So, yeah, I didn't realize it was that big of a standard they would use to figure the parking out. But so, I mean, in essence, it means you can, there's quite a bit of, it's not, you have to do a 3-point turn in a Suburban in the back, but you can get it in there. Yeah, but yeah, the parking is obviously, it's tight on this lot, and same with Cherry Street. Every inch was, was critical. And I really tried to push the landscape, as much landscape into the parking as you can. So it might look like there's not a lot of parking there, just because the landscape kind of goes in and out of the parking. It's not a straight run of just straight down paving. So yeah, will the car go kind of over into the landscaping? It will a little bit, but it shouldn't really affect the plants that much. But I just feel it's really important to get the driveway as lush and landscaped as possible, because you see these driveways that are just asphalt and nothing in them. They're awful.
It's nice to see that. So nice job.
Thanks.
On the parking, do the parking spaces have garage doors?
Well, the units have garage doors. Is that what you mean?
Will the car be enclosed with a door?
Yeah, there's a garage, and I can go back to. Oh, you threw me out. Okay, I'll go back. You can sort of see it here, but there are garage doors. There's not a great view here. That's probably the best view. But yeah, there are garage doors at each unit, and like on Cherry Street, we put in some etched glass in part of the door just to sort of lighten it up and keep it, so it's less sort of parking lot feeling. So
one reason I was asking about the garage doors is that sometimes there's concern that people will store stuff in their garage instead of putting their car there and then park their car out on the street, which leads to trouble. So I suppose with the garage door, that would maybe be an even greater tendency for the garages to be used for storage rather than vehicle parking.
The city, do you need permits to be on the? Do you need permits to be on the street there? I'm just curious.
No.
That's one thing that'd be a good thing for the city is, because like Berkeley I know has this, you have to have a permit to park on the street, so that way they eliminate people just flooding on the streets with their cars, and because you have to have a certain. tangent thing.
And through the chair, they are providing, as you know, some storage areas within the garage, but on the tentative map certificate, which is packet page 32, condition number 10 reads, the final CCNR shall reflect language prohibiting the use of the attached two-car garages for any other use than the parking of vehicles. Storage of any other materials is prohibited.
Wonderful. That's what I was.
Thank you.
That's what I was driving towards, because in the past we've sometimes had to put them in on an ad hoc basis, and now you're all over it. And I think that's I think that helps with a common concern that that neighbors will often have about making sure those parking spots are really used for cars. Good. I had another question about the balconies. First, I have to say that I think the building looks very nice, and I kind of like how there's the gabled and the level portions. That kind of gives a nice mixed feel to it. The balconies have glass walls, and sometimes that lets the people out on the balcony look right down into the neighbor's private space. And I'm wondering if that's a potential issue here, and whether the glass really needs to be. Is the glass clear? Now I'm suddenly realizing this glass is not clear.
Actually,
is
we
this
are.
The glass?
Yeah, that's it. So we are actually etched. It's a white
yeah,
laminated.
In the pictures it doesn't
so.
show, but
Yeah,
your
that's
sample does. Actually. So I think that is not a concern for me then. As long as it's the etched glass, then there certainly wouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, that was the plan, is to, because when you're looking straight out, you just have that.
Yeah, because then you're looking right.
Yeah,
but,
because we are
so-
looking down on there's a two-story neighbor to the south there, so that's the plan for that.
Yeah, that's a nice solution. Kind of let some light in, but keep the privacy. Good.
Does the parking consultant wish to speak? You're just here in case we have a question for you. Okay.
I don't have any more questions.
Any more?
I have no more questions.
No.
I'm good. Okay. Thank you very much. Nice job.
Thank you.
I move that the Planning Commission grant approval for design review, a conditional use permit, a tentative map, and protected tree removal permit to allow the construction of one new three-story building with 4 townhouses at 616 Cedar Street, APN 050-122-070, for the reasons incorporated in the staff report and with the conditions in the conditional use permit / code compliance certificate / tree removal permit and tentative map certificate.
I'll second the motion.
Commissioner Iacopone,
Yes.
Commissioner Roof,
Yes.
Vice Chair Bergman,
Yes.
and Chair Bradley.
Yes. Thank you. That completes.
Congratulations. Good luck with the project.
Yes. When do you intend to start construction?
As soon as possible. Yeah, it's so busy. Building, so construction is so busy right now. It's
Right.
got to get in line, so we'll see.
Good.
We're the only project here tonight.
Good luck and thank you. So the next item are reports, correspondence, and information.
Yes, through the chair, staff has no information or report on recent city council actions for the commission this evening.
I think this is the place where I wanted to note for the record that I'll be unable to participate in the public meetings related to the 800 808 Alameda de las Pulgas due to conflict of interest due to the location of my residence. I just wanted to establish the reason why I'm not able to participate in those discussions.
Understood.
We'll miss your contribution.
And I trust that you'll be very diligent.
And through the chair, staff has no correspondence to pass through to the commission this evening. And so I'll just jump forward to updates and reports of current projects. I did want to note that for our next regular scheduled meeting, which is April 15th, we have two items on the agenda. One is a proposal by Cal Water to construct a new water storage tank on Melody Drive. And the other is actually an affordable housing project located at 817 Walnut. This would be a new 24-unit, 100% affordable housing project that is coming to the commission on April 15th. I did receive notice from Commissioners Roof and Jacoponi that they both will not be available on April 15th. So we do want to reach out to make sure that at least there are 3 commissioners, otherwise we'd have to reschedule both of those projects. So if you, for any reason, are not going to be here, just let me know on April 15th as soon as possible. But I have only this far heard from the 2 commissioners, Roof and Jacoponi.
Yeah, I'll be here.
Thank you.
I'll be here also.
Great. So we'll check in with Commissioner Dugan to make sure he'll be available as well. Let's see, there's one other thing that I did want to mention for the benefit of the commission and also to anyone who might be listening live or watching later on, is that the City Council will be having a study session 1 week from today on April 8th on the topic of housing availability and affordability. So this is something that the council requested staff to bring forward. So there'll be a study session to talk about housing from a broader perspective down to the different programs and incentives that we have here at the city to encourage housing units, and especially how we get affordable housing units on the ground. So if you're interested in that or have neighbors or know people that are interested in that, there will be a study session with the council 1 week from today. And that's all I have for this evening.
Thank you, Lisa. I have 2 announcements. One, on the 13th through the 16th of this month, April already, is the National City Planning Conference, which will be held in San Francisco, headquartered in Moscone and several hotels. This is a national conference where planners from all across the country visit, and it rotates around different cities all the time. Usually about every 10 years we get it in San Francisco. So that's the 13th through the 16th. They welcome planning commissioners as well as staff planners, and that's that. The other item I wish to announce is on the 30th, the last day of this month, April, and my oldest daughter's birthday is in San Mateo at the city library there. There'll be another of the Planning Commission Training Academy meetings like we held in February, I believe. That one was mainly for new planning commissioners, and this one's going to be focused on housing, and it should be a good event. I think it starts at 6 o'clock with some snacks and just goes for a couple of hours, and I think registration is free. That's the 30th of April in San Mateo at the library on housing.
And through the chair, I will look for the invitation. I believe this is being sponsored by 21 Elements to make sure that that is re-forwarded to the commission so that should there be an RSVP requirement, there usually always is. That way, anyone who's interested on the commission, if they would like to RSVP, they can, and they know who to send that to.
Thank you, Lisa. Any more announcements?
Lisa, question. Can you remind us when will the Black Mountain project come back to planning? the EIR?
Yes, I don't have a particular time frame for that. The written comment period ended actually today, 5 p.m. today. So at this point, those comments are going to be forwarded to the consultant team and staff and start using those to prepare the full scope of the EIR. So I'd have to provide an update to the commission at your next hearing. I just don't have the details. So right now, the step really is to conduct on the environmental analysis, and that'll take a little bit of a time. And then once that is done, a draft EIR will be released for the public to review and comment on. And then once the comment period closes for that draft EIR, a final environmental impact report will be prepared. And what separates the two is that the final includes the responses to all the public comments that are received on the draft, so that what comes before the commission will be the final, which you'll see the full EIR, of course, and all the comments or responses to the comments. And then, so most likely, looking forward, what the next step will be before the project comes back to you will be when that final EIR and the project proposals before the commission. However, it is quite a large project, so it remains to be seen if staff will potentially want to workshop the item with the commission and then bring it forward for a more formal official public hearing for review. So that remains to be seen, and I'll coordinate with the director and the project planners on that, and any updates that I have for the commission I'll be sure to pass on. But at this point, it's going to take some time because we're just at the very beginning stages of the environmental analysis.
Sure, and the degree of public comment has already been pretty extensive, and so making sure that that we get an opportunity to both review and discuss in public that that comment before it's final, if that's appropriate, that seems useful. So therefore, the idea of workshopping in advance seems useful to us, or to me anyway.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here. The meeting is adjourned.